The following program is sponsored by the Rossmore Community Services District and by the Rossmore Homeowners Association. I'm John Underwood, and welcome to Backstory, a program that attempts to look behind the headlines at the issues and events that affect our lives here in Orange County. So pleased to have in the studio with us today two individuals who've had a great deal to do with bringing to the Southland and to our particular corner of the realm the great works of William Shakespeare every year. I'm talking about Shakespeare in the Park at our local Rush Park, and I'm talking to Lisa Coffey on my right, who is the artistic director for Shakespeare by the Sea, and on my left, Cylon Brown, actor and sometime director for Shakespeare by the Sea. I'm so anxious to talk about this upcoming season's offerings of Macbeth and Taming of the Shrew this summer at Rossmore Park, but some of you, I'm thinking, may not have had the opportunity to attend a live performance or catch one of our Los Al TV recordings of Shakespeare in the Park over the years. So, suppose we begin by giving viewers an up-close opportunity to see just what a bit of Shakespeare in the open air is all about with this short Shakespeare in the Park retrospective. July 13th, 2014, at Rush Park in Rossmore, and the revelers begin to gather early for an al fresco Shakespearean romp of the surreal, A Midsummer Night's Dream. Brought to the park this year, courtesy of the Shakespeare by the Sea Theatrical Company. But even before the pilgrims arrive, the actors and staff of Shakespeare by the Sea show up to build a complete outdoor stage from the ground up. A feat in itself we'd like you to see the nuts and bolts of, so to speak, to believe. Remember, these are the same actors who will shortly be transforming this stage they built that day into a Shakespearean Midsummer Night's Dream. Shakespeare by the Sea's traveling troupe of intrepid actors and troubadours is now in its 20th year of presenting open-air performances of the Bard's Best around LA and OC. Los Al TV has had the opportunity and pleasure of recording for broadcast at least 5 years of these performances at one such venue, Rush Park in Rossmore. Here then are highlights of just a few of those performances.
Words! Words!
What is the matter, my lord?
The matter between who? I mean the matter that you read, my lord.
Slander, sir! For the satirical rogue says here that old men have gray beards, their faces are wrinkled, their eyes purging thick amber, that they have a plentiful lack of wit, all together with marvelous weak hams, which though I most potently, powerfully believe, I would not have it here set down. For yourself, sir, might be as old as I am, if, like a crab, you could go backwards.
Though this be madness, yet there is method in it. Will you walk out of the air, my lord?
Into my grave?
Indeed, that is out of the air. My honorable lord, I will most humbly take my leave of you.
You cannot take from me anything that I would not more willingly part withal, except my life. Except my life. Except my life.
Very well, my lord.
To be or not to be? That is the question. Whether it is nobler in the mind to suffer the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune, or take arms against a sea of troubles, and by opposing, end them. To die, to sleep, no more. And by a sleep, to say we end the heartache and the thousand natural shocks the flesh is heir to, 'tis a consummation devoutly to be wished. Die, to sleep, oh, to sleep. Perchance to dream, aye, there's the rub. For in that sleep of death, what dreams may come when we have shuffled off this mortal coil must give us pause.
Forbear and eat no more! Forbear, I say. He dies that touches any of this fruit before I and my affairs are answered.
And you will not be answered with reason. I must die.
Well, welcome. Your gentleness shall force more than your force move us to gentleness.
I almost die for food, and let me have it.
Well then, sit down and feed, and welcome to our table.
Speak you so gently? Pardon me, I pray you. There is a poor old man who after me hath many a weary step limped in pure love. Till he be first sufficed, oppressed with two weak evils, age and hunger, I will not touch a bit.
Oh, well, go find him out. We will nothing waste till you return.
I thank ye, and be blessed for your good comfort.
Thou seest? We are not all alone unhappy. This wide and universal theater presents more woeful pageants than the scene wherein we play in.
All the world's a stage. And all the men and women are merely players. They have their exits and their entrances. And in his time, one man plays many parts, his acts being 7 ages. At first, the infant, mewling and puking in the nurse's arms. And then, the whining schoolboy with his satchel, his shining morning face, creeping like snail unwillingly to school. Oh. And then the lover, sighing like furnace, with a woeful ballad made to his mistress' eyebrow. And then the soldier, full of strange oaths, bearded like the pard, jealous in honor, sudden and quick in quarrel, seeking the bubble reputation even in the cannon's mouth. And then the justice, yes, in fair, round belly, with good cape and lined, with eyes severe and beard of formal cut, full of who I saws and modern instances. And so he plays his part. In the 6th stage, shifts to the lean and slippered pantaloon, spectacles on nose and pouch on side, his youthful hose, well saved, a world too wide for his shrunk shank, and his big manly voice, turning again towards childish dribble, pipes and whistles in his sound. And the last scene that ends this strange, eventful history, the second childishness and mere oblivion. Sans teeth, sans eyes, sans taste, sans everything.
Happy be you. Peace Be it then, for by this gentleman's report and mine, I hope Imperial Caesar will reknit his favor with the radiant Cymbeline, which shines here in the west.
That a Roman and a British ensign weigh friendly together. So through Ludstown march, and in the temple of great Jupiter, our peace we'll ratify, sealed with feast set on there. Never was a war did cease, ere bloody hands were washed with such a peace! Yeah!
Okay, well, I hope that gives you a little flavor for Shakespeare in the Park at Rush Park, and a little bit of anticipation for the upcoming season this summer with our guests, Lisa Coffey, Artistic Director for Shakespeare by the Sea, and Cy Brown, who you're going to be directing this summer.
This summer, yeah, we're directing Taming of the Shrew, and then Stephanie Coltrane, who's been directing for many years, will be doing Macbeth.
Okay,
yep.
and we'll get to that point in a little bit, but we've got a little business to attend to. I do want to say one thing about that last clip that we were looking at. That was from Cymbeline, really a little known of the 37 Shakespeare plays, one of the least known.
Yeah.
And yet you chose it for last year's second production.
Yes.
At Rush Park and 22 or 23 other venues around Southern California. But you had that audience wrapped.
Yes, but we picked that show on purpose because as Shakespeare by the Sea, there's only so many times you can do Midsummer Night's Dream and Romeo and Juliet in the top 5. So, and we were looking to do a show that had not been done previously, either by the company and not really widely done throughout. Well, it ended up being the country, but not in Los Angeles. That's where we started our search. How many times has Cymbeline been done in Los Angeles? And it was very few, and not in the preceding years very, very many. So we thought, hey, let's give it a go. No one knows this show. We can create it from the ground up. No one has any preconceived notions about it. They don't know the story, so we got to introduce it to everyone for the first time.
Well, it just goes to show that there are jewels in every one of Shakespeare's 37 plays, and God knows how much wisdom in those sonnets that he did. Yeah. Also, in a very short lifetime. What did he die at the age of 52 or something like that? Yep. Started, I presume, about 20, so that's more than a play a year.
Yeah, I think when he was cranking them out the most, I mean, it's. They say that, I think that there's at least five or six out in a matter of like 1 or 2 years when he was like kind of at his peak. So yeah, he was really cranking them out. And they rehearsed his company, the King's Men. This year we had kind of a truncated rehearsal schedule at Shakespeare by the Sea. So we rehearsed, have rehearsed for 3 full weeks before we go into opening night. Which is a short rehearsal period. I mean, you're really...
For us, normally we have about a 6-week rehearsal period plus 4 nights of tech. So, but it ends up about, 32 hours or 34 hours, something like that, worth of rehearsal time, but it's usually stretched out longer. And this year we truncated.
Yeah, so it's a lot. But Shakespeare's group, the King's Men, they would rehearse, they say, for 3 days. They would put up Richard III in 3 days, and then they would be like, all right, go out there on stage and make it happen. So yeah, they would really, really, really crazy kind of fast. So yeah, he was cranking them out, and they were rehearsing really quickly and putting the show up, and what you got was probably a little bit different than what we have written down. But yeah, pretty crazy.
Probably not all that different from the original on the street performances that Shakespeare maybe would have directed himself.
Yeah.
I mean, I've got to believe that there was a lot of going off book back in those times
yes.
too for the original plays. So I think he wrote them to be kind of loosey-goosey, don't you think?
Yeah, absolutely. I think so. I mean, and the...
I believe so.
Yeah, yeah.
And I'm fully support.
I mean, when he handed out his lines to his actors, so nowadays, like when we go through our rehearsal process, you know, my actors will have their lines, and they'll have the line that came before and the line that comes after, and they know everyone else's lines. When Shakespeare would hand out his lines, he was so worried about people stealing his plays and claiming his plays as their own that he wouldn't give his actors the entire thing, the full script. They would only have their lines, and they wouldn't know what the person was going to say before them or who was going to talk after them. So you really would have to, I think you under those conditions, would have to kind of ad-lib and make stuff up and kind of go off book because...
Am I supposed to say this now?
Yeah, you have no idea what's going to happen.
What am my line to respond is to which line?
Yeah, right. You know? Yeah, so I think there was a kind of a lot of so I think when you end up doing shows in the park and when you kind of have like sort of a sense of irreverence for what's going to happen and what comes next, I think you really are kind of tapping into the way Shakespeare probably performed his shows, the way that they were probably performed when he was directing them himself. Yeah.
Well, the last scene in Cymbeline, where the lead actor and the heroine and he grabs her and she does a little bend over. How blocked was that shot? Because it just captured the audience that night.
Yeah. So, well, yes. So that was a lot of work. That really takes a lot of work because so as a director, you're thinking about the picture. So in that scene, you have a picture where everyone's on stage and you're trying to make a nice image. So you're using your eye to say, okay, well, I've got this big triangle here, and everyone's there. So you're kind of creating energy on stage, and then you have them right in the middle, the center of focus. But that kiss and that dip took almost an entire rehearsal to get that moment to really pace it out and manufacture that magical moment. And then and then on top of that, you layer the music, and there's the swelling of the music. So you really are taking a lot of time to
massage.
It
really was a massage moment. I know it was worked quite a bit.
Yeah, and so you really got to try to make it happen. And then that's the great thing about live theater is once you have worked it, your actors make it seem like it's effortless and it just happened for the first time that night. That's the sign of like a really great cast, as you all of a sudden go, oh wow, I wasn't expecting that. Yeah, and it's really powerful.
But before we ever get to the magic, mm-hmm. there's the hammer and nails part of it, and that's why I wanted to show in the little montage that we showed you a little bit earlier what it takes to put a production like that together from nothing on the grass, where the day before people were, kicking a soccer ball around, and suddenly it's a Shakespearean stage. Well, I hope we conveyed a little bit of the sweat equity that goes into that. But Lisa, as artistic director, you have to make that happen, just logistically.
Yeah. Logistically, yes. I've got it figured out, don't I? When we
You've
first
got a
started,
manual.
No, I wish I did.
She wrote the manual.
I wrote the manual. I've been rewriting it since I built the festival 20 years ago. So, originally we built the set specifically so it was fit inside my Suburban, which was at that time the tour truck. And then I decided after 2 years of driving around with a set in my truck, I went, hey, we'd like a few more effects, we'd like a few more things. What if I rented and we could raise enough money so I could rent a tour truck? So, and that's kind of, we build to the truck. We build everything so that it will fit inside that truck. It will break down and be able to nest and nestle to do the one truck.
Well, you've been doing this at Rush Park in Rossmore for 11 years?
Yes, this will be our 11th season.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And actually, in other venues around the Southland for this is the 20th
anniversary?
20th anniversary.
Yeah, 20 years.
Crazy.
Well, we know this because you said this in a little clip that we're going to show you right now. This is Lisa Coffey, artistic director for Shakespeare by the Sea at Rush Park. Oh, what was this? maybe last year.
Okay.
Because last year was the 400th anniversary
of Shakespeare.
Of Shakespeare, so you
Shakespeare
mentioned
Christmas.
that. So let's roll that clip because I'd like folks to see just what exactly Lisa Coffey does as artistic director. Just ahead of showtime, Shakespeare by the Sea production director Lisa Coffey welcomes all to another evening of the Bard and to take a moment to raise a few ducats for the cause.
Guys, thank you so much for coming back to see us here in Rossmore. I did see when BJ asked how many people came last night, right? This is the 400th anniversary of Shakespeare's death. Yes? Yes, it is. It's only going to happen once in your lifetime, people. You know, and for those of you that don't know, the reason we did do a stage side chat last night, and someone asked me, why do you do this? And the reason why I do this is my 19th year, and I'm the one who made this go. This is my thesis project that I'm just not giving up. So I no longer live here, and I've been commuting now for the last 14 years from Auburn to keep this alive. So guys, support it, support it, support it. I am passionate about this, and I do feel that you should be too, because you're here and you're going to have a fabulous evening. All right, so if I haven't met you yet, I would love to meet you because I love meeting people. You're the reason why I'm doing this. So enjoy tonight's performance, and do take a moment to say hi, donate, spend some money, do whatever you need to do. All right, I'll see you at the end. Enjoy.
Okay, back in the studio with Lisa Coffey, artistic director for Shakespeare by the Sea, and lead actor Cy Brown. Well, I thought that clip was important and revealing. I mean, is this really an extended graduate study thing
Yes,
you did? You
it
really
is.
start out that way?
It is.
20 years ago?
It is, yes. It was my thesis project. I got my master's in theater management from Cal State Long Beach, and I needed to have a project that I could write a whole bunch of, a thesis on. So my thesis actually ended up being about chaos theory and chaos in theater. There is one set of people that say that chaos is theater, and I say no. In order to be repeatable, it turns from chaos into a planned series of events. So I was able to disprove that theater was chaos. So that was my thesis, and I was able to prove it by doing Shakespeare by the Sea. So because we have to do steps A to B to C to D in order to have a production. So you have to put together your team, you have to find your actors, decide on the shows, find your actors, raise the money, find your production personnel, learn the lines, rehearse it, and do it. So, and then you do the same thing again and again, the same show night after night.
Okay. That's the theory.
Well, yes, there is chaos.
We may have to deconstruct that theory a little bit
but you're still,
in the next 20 minutes.
You're still going through a series of events that are A, B, C, D. We all know that we're going to show up at 5 o'clock. We know we're going to unload the truck. We know we're going to build the set. We know we're going to do a show that starts at 7. It's going to have X amount of lines. It's going to end at 9. I mean, it's a known series of factors of events that happen for every production. Every performance.
But then you're always in a new venue with Shakespeare by the Sea, because we are traveling all around the greater Los Angeles, Orange County area. Yeah. So that unknown is, the variable is, you don't know what audiences are going to be like. You don't know what the climate is going to be like. You don't know, is everyone, we do a show.
Is the grass going to be
Yeah, we've done shows where, the audience is right there, and you look up and you see them, and they're sitting on a little hill and they're right there, and then you go somewhere and they're spread really far out. They're on a baseball field. We've gone to we've gone to places where generators will blow, and you do the show in the dark, and then all of a sudden when the lights go up, the audience erupts into wild applause because they're that excited. So the chaos is there because you're always going somewhere new. You never know what's going to happen, but the show always goes on. Yeah, because you've done all the other steps to get to that point.
Right.
Yeah.
I count 20 to 25 members of the troupe. Is that about right?
That sounds
come
about
to
right.
A production. setup as we saw earlier?
Oh, as far as how many people show up per night. Usually there's 13 cast members, 13, 14, maybe 15 cast members. Then you've got a stage manager, you've got 2 sound people, you've got 4 or 5 volunteers, plus the production team. So around 30 something to make it happen on a nightly basis.
So where do these people come from, and why don't they get real jobs? I mean, it's hard work. As we saw in the
It's
clip.
a lot of hard work.
Yeah, I mean,
it's a lot of hard work.
Where do you find your troupe?
The actors come from all over LA and Orange County. They audition, obviously, in. You will see a lot of actors that have been playing with our troupe for a long time. Because there are not a lot of places in Los Angeles as an actor where you can perform for this amount of people or have this kind of magical experience on a nightly basis. They end up performing for roughly 20,000 or over 20,000 people in a single season. So it's quite the experience for them, and they get addicted to it. They like it. The instantaneous feedback of being able to actually go out and talk to audience members right afterwards. You know, there's a buzz of electricity that goes through the audience and the cast alike that makes it you want to do it. It's magical.
Yeah, and there's something about, for me, when I remember in acting in the shows, there's something about yes, the size of the crowds and the interaction with the crowds, but there's something really amazing about the diversity of the crowds, right? So if you're doing Shakespeare at the Alamitos, you can generally know what kind of people are going to be showing up. You're probably going to get wealthier, well-educated folks coming every night who probably have some sort of background with Shakespeare. When you're working with this group and you're going, like I said, to all these different locations, I mean, you really are bringing Shakespeare to the people. A lot of people, this is their first time ever experiencing it. A lot of families, kids. Some of my fondest memories are doing shows, clowning around and seeing kids in the grass rolling with laughter. And this is just an experience that you don't get to have in a formal theater setting. So there is something that's really powerful about that. And if you are passionate about the work, getting to bring that experience to people, I think, is what's addictive about it.
I love all the excitement that they're just so excited. Not only young kids, but I think I met someone who was 72 last year in Hermosa Beach who'd never seen a Shakespeare play. And she was thrilled. She was sitting on her little walker just having the best time ever.
Yeah.
So, and then, she made a point of stopping me and telling me that she'd never seen a Shakespeare play. And you're going, all your life you've lived in Hermosa Beach and you've never taken the opportunity to see a Shakespeare play. That's bizarre. But she's like, I'm on a fixed income, so I thought I'd come out and see it, and you're like, awesome.
Yeah.
That is great.
Well, it's wonderful. I mean, the experience, beside the fact that it's all al fresco, most of the performances are outside?
All of them.
All of them are outside. Mm-hmm. That's a wonderful thing in itself.
Mm-hmm.
And then the actors stick around afterward and
meet and greet.
Yeah,
you get
with
the audience.
Members of the audience. Anybody can walk up and talk to the actors, get valuable information. Where are they going to go to do that anywhere else?
No, that's amazing. And then, you start to find out too. Like I think it's actually in Rossmore. We've had folks come up who have shown us family calendars, and that they make for their own family. And every month, they'll always have a picture of the Shakespeare show that they went to that summer. And so, or this is hanging on our refrigerator. And so, you start to kind of become the fabric of the community also, which is just, you don't do that. You don't get that anywhere else.
Yeah.
I certainly didn't think that was going to happen when I started it. I thought it was just going to be a one-off summer thing, and it was a lot of fun, and I made a lot of friends. So then we decided to do it again, and I had enough people behind me that wanted to do it again. So I seemed to be the planner and the person who said, okay, let's do this. It's time to do this. I am the person who puts it together. So I put it together for a second year, and we did it. And then it was like, okay, you find a couple more team players and more people that want to get on board. Suzanne Dean came on board the third year and started helping with things. So it just started growing and growing. And now,
so there's a little more to it than not being able to figure out how to complete your thesis project.
Yeah, no, it became, 20 years later, I learned how to incorporate. I mean, I do a lot of budgeting. Not only are we doing Shakespeare by the Sea in the summer, but it takes us a full year to plan it and to raise the money to do it. And then in our off time, we have a 65-seat black box theater where that also has a season of 11 plays.
Up in San Pedro.
Up in San Pedro. So we're doing 13 plays, or I'm in charge of 13 plays a year, staffing, raising money, selling tickets, figuring out how to make it all go every year.
I imagine when it's an open-ended performance like that in a untethered environment, let's say, like San Pedro, or really could be anywhere. I mean, for example, do you ever get a guy with a shopping cart walking through?
Yes, indeed. Yeah, that's why it's fun to do the comedies. Because when you're doing a tragedy, you're trying to stay in the moment, right? And so if you are, doing To Be or Not to Be, and, you're trying to kind of get people thinking about what is life and what is the value of being alive and what happens when we die, and then a bunch of guys go by on Harleys, you try to not notice them. When you're doing a comedy, you can turn to them and yell at them, and you feel a little more freedom to acknowledge the fact that things aren't going exactly as planned.
Yeah. Well, I know you yourself. You will go off script. You'll go off book. I mean, you even threw a couple lines to the cameraman at one of my shows one night.
That was
unfortunate. No.
Yeah, that's a fine line. So and that really depends on what your director's vision is, or what your director's asking from you. So
will they ask you to play it loose?
Yes.
Sometime?
So for that show, that was As You Like It, with directed by Patrick Vest, who also did Midsummer that we saw earlier. And he gave me a lot of freedom to ad lib, and he would even give direction, and just every night I want you to say something different here, and so you go,
okay,
challenge accepted, and you try to keep it. You try to keep the story moving forward. You don't want it to become a whole vaudeville act where it's just you on stage. Yeah. I mean, maybe a little bit you want that.
Be careful.
I'm sure. But I do remember that very specifically. I can't remember what the line was, but I do remember being like, "Oh, this would be perfect. I can berate the newscast. I can berate the group of cameras here." So. It depends on what your actor
I think he referred to yonder cameras in the woods.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, some freedom there.
So, that brings me to a point. I did a little research myself. In fact, I did a little math, and I concluded from my math, little scholarly point here, the average Shakespeare play has 24,000 words in it. And you learn every word, right?
Well, not quite. First of all,
that's why there's a cast of 13 people. It's divided up. There are lead characters.
But you got to know your cues, so you have to know the other guy's lines to some extent.
That's true. Yeah. So before we even start the memorizing, we have to cut our plays down to 2 hours. So when we did Hamlet, if it were in its full version, is a 4-hour-long show, and we can't do 4 hours of Hamlet in Rossmore, because we'd be there till midnight, and people would be like, "Turn the lights off.
I'm done.
Yeah.
I'm tapping out."
So we cut all of our shows down to be about 1:45 to 2 hours. So that gets rid of a lot of words right there. And then you try your best to memorize as much as you can. And again, if you're doing To Be or Not to Be, you want that. I mean, that's the.
That needs to be verbatim.
Right. That's the speech that everyone knows, and it's an important speech, in the English language. If you are coming on and you're saying, "What an exotic island this is," and the parrot's there, those are things that you can again play a little fast and loose with. But you try to know as much as you possibly can, and hopefully keep it all up there.
Well, I'm glad you used that phrase, fast and loose.
Yeah.
Because we have a clip we'd like to hurl at you.
Yeah.
Can we roll that clip? It's. I'll give you a little setup. It's Cy as Touchstone the Clown, holding forth to his ad love adversary
Yes,
for his
yeah.
beloved.
Audrey was the name of the young wench in question, and William was the guy who was trying to woo her away.
All right,
yeah.
so perforce and to the point. Let's roll the clip on Touchstone the Clown.
Oh, aye, sir, I have a pretty wit.
Ah, you do now remind me of a saying, that the fool doth think himself to be a wise man, where the wise man knows himself to be a fool. He doesn't get it. My friend, do you love this lady?
I do, sir.
Oh, give me your hand, friend. Art learn it?
No, sir.
Oh, well, learn this of me. To have is to have, for it is a figure in rhetoric that drink being poured out of a glass into the cup, by filling the one doth empty the other. For all your writers consent that Ipsy is he. Now you are not Ipsy, sir, for I am he!
Which he, sir?
He, sir, that must marry this woman! Wow! Therefore, clown, abandon, which in the churlish is leave, the society, which in the common is company, of this female, which in the boorish is woman, which together is, abandon the society of this female, or clown, thou perishest. Or to thy better understanding, diest. Or to wit, I kill thee, make thee away, translate thy life into death, thy liberty into bondage. I will deal in poison with thee. Or in steel, sink blood everywhere, blood. Or I will deal in bastinado with thee, ha, 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 ha. Or I will bandy with thee in faction. Or I will o'errun thee with policy. Yes. Therefore, clown, I will kill you 150 ways. Therefore, tremble and depart.
Too good will oh, God rest you merry, sir. Master and Mistress seek you. Come away.
Oh, come, Audrey. Trip, Audrey. Trip.
Ooh.
That's a bunch of silliness.
That's exhausting to watch.
Well, there's a point here.
Okay.
Blood.
That was absolutely blocked and scripted, and you performed it just as it was blocked and scripted, right?
100%. 100%. Absolutely knew what was going on all the time.
Now let's deconstruct Lisa's thesis here.
Yes.
How much of that was Shakespeare, and how much of that was Cy Brown?
Oh, okay. So I think that's about... So the
80-20?
I was going to go 90-10.
90-10.
So
90 you?
90% me. I mean, again, this is what comes with working with a director like Patrick. So the stuff that sounded Shakespearean was Shakespearean, and the stuff that sounded like it didn't belong there did not belong there, or wasn't written there. I would argue that it could belong there. But so at that time, again, the director was really asking me to come up with stuff, find ways to animate it. So it ended up, we were playing around, and we were imagining this, all these different ways to kill a guy, and acting them all out. And so then all of a sudden, when you start doing that and start having fun, you got to start having a little, adding your own flavor to it, which I was invited to do, and which I was allowed to do.
So your poison victim evacuating his bowels was part of it?
That was just that was the 10% side.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. I just wanted you to do it.
Yeah. No, that was very much something that I was lucky enough to get to do.
Lucky.
Yeah.
Do you have any role as artistic director? Do you have a role in that?
Oh yeah, it's got to get by me.
Cy is directing this
Taming of the Shrew.
Taming of the Shrew.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Who's directing Macbeth this summer?
Stephanie Coltrane.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Do they have to come to you, trot to you, and say, "Hey, is this going to fly?"
Yes. Yes. Ultimately, yes. Okay. So I come out and I watch the shows. I'm involved in the cutting, not so much this year, just because I trust the two directors to cut. But I will come out during Tech Week and I go to the first read-throughs and look at them and say, hey, this is either going to fly or it doesn't fly. I consider I'm not I don't consider myself a Shakespearean scholar, and everybody knows it. So the whole thing about me coming out, I want to make sure that we're still able to understand what's happening on stage. So there are some things that can either become unclear or really muddied or are archaic, that if we're not going to understand them, and I don't think it's going to play to the audience, then we will cut it. Because why spend time on it and have it in there if it's just going to confuse people? I want our shows to be accessible. I want people to be able to understand them, especially for the layman who's not seen Shakespeare. You want them to be able to come in and go, oh, I get it. This is for every man.
Yeah, and Lisa does a really good job of helping and making sure that, and I think everyone who directs for it, it's always, we want the clarity of the story. It's the story, the story, the story. Serve the story, tell the story, let the audience know what's going on. So you get a show like Cymbeline, where a lot of times you can work it, and I actually have seen productions, and a lot of times when you watch Cymbeline, you go,
I don't get it.
What is happening? What is happening here? But because we really want people to understand what's happening, and that's always what we're striving for the most, you bring Cymbeline to a group of people, and they go, oh, I understand. And even though they might not understand every single line, they're still getting the story and the plot.
Well, that's why I try at the beginning when I capture Shakespeare in the park at Rush Park, July 22nd and
23rd.
23rd,
Yes.
coming right up next month, folks. I try to do an interview. I try to get somebody to give me a thumbnail of just what the play is about, just an outline. It might be, and I think I've done that with you. I've done that with members of the audience. We have a pretty
well-read audience.
Savvy.
Intelligent audience, I'll say, in Rossmore, educated audience, let's just say that. And sometimes members of the audience can just give me chapter and verse, on a particular play. And I'll find somebody in the audience on that particular day. Who can give me a thumbnail on that particular sketch, that particular production. In fact, recently, a couple of years ago, I was able to do that with Patrick Best, one of the directors and actors in Shakespeare by the Sea. And he gave me a really amazing sketch of the play that he was acting in and directing. In fact, why don't we roll that clip? This is a clip a couple of years ago of Patrick Vest, director and actor in a play. I'll leave it there. I'll let him explain it to us.
All right, so Hermia is in love with Lysander, and Lysander is in love with Hermia.
Yeah.
Okay? Demetrius is in love with Hermia. Hermia doesn't care for Demetrius.
He's going to run out of fingers here.
Yeah. Helena is in love with Demetrius, but Demetrius doesn't love Helena. So you'd think Hermia and Lysander should get together because they love each other. But Hermia's father, Aegeus, wants Hermia to marry Demetrius, who she despises. So he goes to the Duke and he says, Duke, either my daughter is going to marry Demetrius like I want him to, or she has to die by our law, which is part of the ancient Athenian law. And then Theseus amends it to say, or she can become a nun. So those are her three choices. Well, instead, Hermia and Lysander run off into the woods. Helena tells Demetrius that they ran off in the woods. He pursues her. She pursues him. And now they're in the woods. Well, the thing about the woods outside of Athens is that they're teeming with fairies. And the fairies happen to be at war. So Oberon and Titania are at war over a changeling boy. It's a half-human, half-sprite child who can change shapes. Oberon wants him to be his page. Titania wants to keep him because the mother was a votress of her order, so was a nun of her denomination. So they're at war. Puck, who is Oberon's right-hand man, is this getting any easier to follow?
Well, just trying to get the name straight.
Yes. Puck, who is Oberon's right-hand man, is a trickster, a prankster. So the lovers are in the woods. There's a magic flower that can make anybody fall in love with anybody. Oberon gets it, puts it on Titania's eyes, hoping that she'll fall in love with some beast so he can beg the boy from her. Puck puts it on Lysander's eyes. He wakes up and loves Helena suddenly instead of Hermia. And then he does it to Demetrius, and so they're both in love with Helena now, and Hermia's left out in the cold. And so the hilarity ensues as they all try to woo one another. Meanwhile, Bottom and his group are going to perform a play for Theseus, and they end up in the woods, and Puck runs across them and decides to have fun with them. He puts a donkey's head in place of Bottom's head. Titania wakes up, falls in love with Bottom with a donkey's head on his head. And then that's sort of the crux of the play, and then it kind of everybody gets to be with who they're supposed to be, and it all works out in the end.
It does all work out in the end.
Absolutely.
Okay. Okay, back to the studio. Well, that was a magnanimous amount of time spent. Thanks to Patrick for laying that out for us, because it was grueling. but that is how people get it, and then you can follow it.
Yeah.
And so it was really important. I really appreciate him doing that for me. And you did it for me on another play previously to that. So
yeah, the roadmap through the play.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. And let's track the roadmap into the near future with the upcoming productions of
yes.
Macbeth and Taming of the Shrew.
Yes, we open next Thursday. Sci Show opens next Thursday at Point Fermin Park. 7 days.
Really?
7 days, yes.
Oh my gosh.
At Point Fermin. So the Taming of the Shrew opens on June 15th, and then we open Macbeth on July 22nd. Or June 22nd. June. Both in June. And then we're not here in Rossmore until July 22nd and 23rd.
Yeah.
You're not aware of these dates? Or
He knows until next Thursday.
I get the actors to say their words. I tell them where to stand. I make the moments happen. I don't know where we are or when we are. I just show up. That's how it goes.
You are available.
I'm around. I'm usually around, but I don't know what's going on after my job's done.
From a director's point of view, is it a little intimidating to take on something like, even Taming of the Shrew is something that's been done many times.
Yeah.
It's been done in film.
Yeah.
I mean, do you go back? I mean,
we just talked
Elizabeth
about that
Taylor
the other day,
and Richard Burton
did it
in a film form.
Yeah, the Zeffirelli film.
Yeah.
Yeah, there is.
Do you go back and look at that at all, or do you get any inspiration from?
Sometimes. I mean, yeah, it's good to know what people
what came before
have done. Yeah, and it's good to kind of get a feel for and there are like directorial choices that kind of become canon. So when you are directing a show, there are certain choices that almost is almost as important as the show itself. So it's not as much intimidating as it is inspiring. You want to do as well as others. Yeah.
So at the end of Taming of the Shrew, as we saw in the film with Burton and Elizabeth Taylor, where he gives her a goose on the backside, can we expect to see that in
There
this
is no goose. Okay, good. So I'm glad you brought this up. This is great. So Taming of the Shrew is kind of considered a problem. It's a show that people have different feelings about, especially in modern society, because it can be a play about a mouthy woman who is impossible to get along with, and a guy basically kidnaps her and abuses her until she comes around to seeing things his way. You know, the first Stockholm, whatever, Yes. So that's one way, and I have seen it directed that way. So it's very heavy, and it's about a man. It's about patriarchy breaking a woman.
Sounds like a Bill Cosby headline.
Yeah, it could be. So that's kind of a very modern interpretation and a take on it. Now, to me, and at the end of the play, she has a monologue, a speech where she's telling other women on the stage how they should love their husbands and how they should behave, and she's so ashamed that she would ever fight back, which is a problem, especially if you're a modern day
female
forward-thinking audience and
in
you're
charge of a whole show.
Yeah, and you're listening.
I would have a problem with that,
Yeah, and
sure, abuse me, I'll love you more.
Yeah,
it's not gonna fly with today's audiences.
Right. So
so how do you temper that?
Right. So when I read the play and when I'm directing the play, to me it's not about that. It's not about the Stockholm syndrome. It's not about the abuse, but it's actually about
two impossible
people. Petruchio, who is the lead male, is just as difficult to get along with as Kate is, And everything that he does, this journey that he takes her on, they're in love with each other at first sight, I think. They see each other and they go, oh, yeah, there's this spark that happens. And he takes her on this journey, which he goes through with her. He doesn't let her sleep. He also doesn't sleep. He doesn't let her eat. He also doesn't eat. And together, they both realize that they're the only people who can stand one another, and they're the most
they're perfect
happy
for each
yeah,
other.
they're the most perfect couple in the entire canon of Shakespeare. And when she gives that final speech, it's not so much about her admonishing the other women. She's talking to Petruchio that entire time, and she's trying to teach him a lesson about, you really want a woman who does all these things? So it becomes a very different story, a very different interpretation, based on what you want to say with your show. Completely different. There's two completely different Taming of the Shrews in there. I'm choosing one that is a little more lighthearted and fun and loving than going with one that's a little heavier and more intense.
Well, we take no editorial position on
Yeah.
Taming of the Shrew here at Backstory. But I'm glad you did that, because now we have our synopsis for Taming of the Shrew. And of course, Taming of the Shrew, second bill. Well, I don't know what would get top billing here. These are two exceptional pieces of Shakespeare canon that are coming up here in Rossmore in July. Macbeth is the, well, everyone knows Macbeth, dripping with politics, ancient and current.
Very
we
appropriate.
could say, could we not?
Yeah, it's political. It's a Game of Thrones. It's a
study of power, and what do we do to get power, and what does power do to us? Yeah.
How do you take a monster production like Macbeth and turn it into a al fresco evening out?
We're not the first company to have done it.
Yeah.
And this is also what
But in an informal outdoor environment,
do we worry about it at all?
Color the
Well, we're not going to be able to
seriousness of the
do
production?
No, it's still going to be serious. It's still going to be heavy hitting, and Stephanie is always really good about picking a thread of a political piece that will align with what's happening today, but still keep you in the other time. So she's going to highlight Macbeth, but people are going to understand it and see a power struggle that's happening and a political thing, and how a wife and a husband, what they do to each other and what happens to them because of their desire for power.
Well, I can understand how Macbeth could be one of those in the dark plays. What conjures up for me is the front page of the LA Times.
Yeah.
When I imagine Macbeth.
Yeah.
I see it on the front page of the Los Angeles Times, or the Orange County Register for that matter, on a daily basis. So, well, this is a great lineup, guys, and we're looking forward to being there. Also,
great, yeah, you're going to come tape.
Give us the dates again.
Yeah, we're in Rossmore on July 22nd and 23rd. It's a Saturday, Sunday, back to back, 7 o'clock. Macbeth goes first, and Taming of the Shrew goes second.
So, Saturday night is Macbeth.
Yes.
And then
Sunday night
you
is
can
Taming of the Shrew.
ring out your cheers and open the laugh machine for Sunday night's Taming of the Shrew. Now, this isn't all you do, though.
No, as I mentioned earlier, we have a 65-seat black box theater in San Pedro. It's called Little Fish Theater. And it's a lot of the Shakespeare by the Sea folks that want to continue on with doing theater the rest of the year. So in there we do a cadre of 11 productions a year. At any given time we'll have 2 plays running. So you can see one on a Friday and Saturday that is very different from one on a Wednesday, Thursday. So, and Cy is directing a show that's coming up. He directed one last year right after Shakespeare by the Sea. And right when he's stepping out of Taming of the Shrew here, you're going to be stepping right in.
Right into the next thing, yeah. So I'm doing Boeing at Little Fish, which is a farce. So I'm keeping the comedy hat on and being silly and ridiculous, but in a much smaller location, but with a lot of the same audience members. Our San Pedro audience members come out and support us. At Little Fish, we use a lot of the same actors. You see a lot of familiar faces. And Little Fish is really a great place for the artists. It's a really great theater because lately, has it been a year, the Actors Fund?
3 years.
It's 3 years, going on 3 years. It's one of the few small black box theaters that actually pays the artists for the time that they're spending doing their work. So they're getting paid for their work, which is like something that almost never happens.
Right.
when you're up like closer to downtown LA, when you're in Hollywood. Yeah, so it's really an amazing venue for that reason, if nothing else.
Now, I've seen a couple performances up there at your Little Fish Theater up on 6th Street.
It's on 8th and Center. It's between
8th and
7th and 8th on Center.
Yeah, and it's a beautiful drive and up over the Vincent Thomas from Long Beach, and it's a wonderful night out without having to go to LA.
Yeah.
And so it's a great opportunity if you have a chance to get up to Little Fish in San Pedro. And do you have an online website?
Yes,
that you can...
littlefishtheater.org or shakespearebythesea.org. They're both intertwined. You can get from one to the other, and we advertise the productions that we're doing on both sites.
Okay.
So,
well, the productions on deck at the moment are Taming of the Shrew and Macbeth, not necessarily in that order, coming up at Rush Park in Rossmore in July 22nd and 23rd. Can't beat the price. But folks the folks from Shakespeare by the Sea would heartily accept donations. In fact, that's what you live off of, at least at Rossmore Park, right?
Yes, we do live off donations. Yes, we do. I was just telling you about it earlier, how Rossmore used to have a single donor that underwrote the entire productions here, which we loved her, but unfortunately she has moved. So it is up to the Rossmore Community District and its Board of Supervisors or Board of Directors, who have most graciously offered us some funding to continue bringing our productions here. However, it only covers about 20% of what it actually costs bringing our productions here. You know, if we can only raise $4,000 in Rossmore, maybe Rossmore only gets one production and not both.
Oh, that'd be sad.
So we need the community members of Rossmore to kick it up a notch, send in their donations, spend money while they're there, buy raffle tickets, all that sort of thing.
Yeah, we need 2 productions, definitely. We need to cry.
You need to cry,
and then we need to laugh.
All the feelings.
On not on the same night, but one night after the other. So a Saturday and Sunday night, it's a Shakespeare weekend. And folks, you heard it. Bring some ducats.
Yes, ducats for the ducat buckets.
Okay. All right. We look forward to that. And well, we hope you're never done with Rossmore Park and Shakespeare by the Sea's dual productions this summer, 22nd and 23rd of July, Macbeth and Taming of the Shrew. Thank you so much.
Of course.
Cy Brown.
Yeah.
Nice to be here, man.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Great.
And
Awesome.
Lisa Coffey, Artistic Director.
Yeah,
Thank you so much. We'll see you out there on the green.
I'll be there.
So we're going to go out with a little bit of one last clip. And this is, again, Patrick Vest in a production that defies description. It doesn't just jump off the front pages of the papers. It really jumps out of an imagination that the only human being contemporary that I've ever run across who can match it is the mind of Robin Williams. And that, of course, is Midsummer Night's Dream. So we'll close out with Andrew Vest's direction of Midsummer Night's Dream. It says it all.
If we shadows have offended, think about this, and all is mended, that you have but slumbered here, while these visions did appear. And this weak and idle theme, no more yielding, but a dream, gentle, do not reprehend. If you pardon, we will mend. And, as I am an honest puck, if we have unearned luck now to escape the serpent's tongue, I'll make amends ere long, or else the puck will call. So good night, unto you all. Give me your hands, if we be friends, and Robin shall restore amends.